Right, so the flow of this webinar, we'll spend the first half of it introducing our panelists, asking a few pointed questions, strategically getting their insights onto this new field of social data science and policy, before we open up the platform for audience member participation, question and answer. In that regard, as our panelists are speaking, if any of you have questions for them or for us, we invite you to type your questions first in the chat box, and we will soon get going. As soon as the panel discussions are over, we will engage in these questions among the chat group. So without further ado, allow me to introduce our panelists and we'll get going. First joining us is Dr. Chagun Basha, who is the Chief Policy Advisor, Policy Analytics and Insights Unit for the Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor, Government of India. Previously, he was with the Department of Science and Technology, the Center for Policy Research, and was previously at the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore. We're also joined by Dr. Nanditha Mathew, who's a researcher and faculty at the UN University Merit in Netherlands. She's an economics expert and was previously a consultant for the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, and the International Labor Organization. And finally, we have Mr. Raj Mahalingam, who's a supply chain data scientist for Intel Corporation in their global supply chain operations. He has more than 8+ years of industry experience, and we're very excited to welcome all three of our guests to share their insights in this field. You may look at your chat window now to see a more detailed bio, and we encourage you to do your research and learn a little bit more about these really wonderful speakers we have. Now, to moderate our first round of questions for the panel, I'd like to invite my colleague, Dr. Nimita Pandey, who is an assistant professor at the Social Data Science and Policy Department, along with me. Dr. Nimita, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Christopher, and a very, very warm welcome to all of you for today's webinar. First of all, I would like to thank our esteemed panelists, Dr. Chagun, Dr. Nanditha, and of course, Mr. Raj for joining us today. And we hope to learn from this discussion. So as Dr. Christopher said, that we would be discussing very strategically point to point on this. So I would be keen to have a discussion in this round regarding different perspectives from each of the panelists. And as an starter, I would pose a question to Dr. Chagun. So how do you see the role of data science evolving in shaping policy decisions, public policy decisions in India? And it would be great, Chagun, if you have some insights to share some best practices in this context.
Thank you. Thanks, Nimita. Thanks, Christopher, and all the colleagues who joined here, and my co-panelists, Nanditha and Raj. Happy to be part of this discussion, and thanks for the invitation also. I'm equally excited to learn from others who are going to engage in this conversation in this webinar series. As far the question is concerned, I think data science is, of course, gaining momentum, and it's taking its center stage when it comes to public policy as one of its field applications, right? Data science is applied in so many areas, but public policy and public administration is one of the sectors where data science certainly has a major role to play. And we are seeing it with the help of, let's say, the data revolution that is going on around the world, and the technological boom that we are witnessing. Both are the drivers for it. Now, when it comes to public administration and public policy, I limit at least to the top 3 areas that I could think of, which is data-driven insights generation, which is a primary activity all the public policy officers, public administration officers, program planning, PMUs of government agencies do. Like, how do you use data sets to draw insights, and how do you use those insights to feed back into the system where your policies and programs are planned, so that there is an objective evidence to draw any conclusion in taking decisions, right? Because we have accountability towards public resources. We have societal developmental goals to address. So data is one of the key instruments there. So data science helps us draw insights in a meaningful way. That's number one. And number two is the analytics part of it. So analytics in general earlier it was only about data analytics, but now analytics could be on various aspects. Analytics could be on programs, analytics could be on policy instruments, analytics could be on anything very, very specific to public administrative issue. So analytics itself is a stream that emerges from data science practices and tools and techniques. And there are customized frameworks and models that are being developed for analytics. And that's a second strand of activity that I see how data science is playing a role in public policy and administration and governance in general. And the third most important thing, which is making so many people's life much more easier, is data visualization. And data visualization may sound like just a designer's work from the front end of what you have generated as insight from the back end, but how best you represent things many times changes the narrative completely. And data scientists who are working at the large data sets of social data, economic data, various science and technology data sets, or even some of the research data sets, right? They have key role to play. What are the insights that they want to show it to the world through intelligent visualizations? And data visualization as a third strand I see in public policy and public administration playing a key role. And if I want to count the good practices in all these three, at least in the Government of India practices, already we see with MOSPI, Ministry of Statistics, Planning and Implementation, with Niti Aayog, and with various other ministries that are trying to use dashboard-based methods for framework building, trying to use registries for insights generation, and trying to have multi-ministerial coordination so that to have visualization, identifying gaps and opportunities. All of that is a good practice, I would say, but there are certainly challenges which we could discuss while we move to the next stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Chagun. I think a very interesting point you've brought in, not just from the perspective of, say, data science, but in order to how data science, as you said, taking a center stage within policy practice and whole design of policy for that matter, right from what you, if I could sum up talking about, say, insight generation to the range of data visualization, which I think we need to dig more when we have this discussion further as to what could be the tools and techniques. And I think that brings me to Nanditha, which is also to share her perspectives on how do you see that, you know, social science research and methodologies combined with, say, the nature Chagun was discussing about data visualization, analytics, and all could contribute to global policy challenge, and institutions like, say, UN Merit and UN and academia at large could contribute to that. Over to you, Nanditha.
Yeah. Thanks, Namita. Thanks, Christopher, for the invitation and for the opportunity to talk here. I'm happy to meet you both, Chagun and Raj, the other panelist. When we start thinking about, let's say, the global challenges, like how to address global challenges, first we need to think the nature of these challenges. So these challenges are, if you think about it, very complex. And in a way, it transcends the boundaries of one discipline. So one single discipline is not enough to face the global challenges that we have now, because they are extremely complex. So there, I mean, we can take several examples. Take the example of health and environment. There are a lot of health issues that are very much related to the recent changes in climate change, environment, air pollution, but you never see any of the courses that do these two together. Are there courses on health and environment? No. And also, if you think of even topics that I work on like what are the effects of new technologies and innovation on employment or production decisions, of course, I can look at economic data and say, okay, this is what is happening. But why and how, maybe an engineer knows better why certain AI technologies are changing the production systems and how this affects employment. So there are boundaries to each discipline. And here comes the importance of interdisciplinary research and interdisciplinary methods. And when you talk of interdisciplinary methods, one specific component here are the methods part, in the sense data science or method is something that is cross-cutting all the different other disciplines. In a way, it links many other disciplines. And I believe that social science research can advance quite a lot with the new data and the new methods, because the trends or many other aspects that we used to assume before, we can really see with the data. So the question is how we can exploit this in a broader way. So there is a huge potential. So I believe that we all agree on the potential. Now, how academy and international institutions can do this better? This is also a complex issue, because if you look at just the academic part, I mean, if you think only like, the educational programs in India, they tend to be quite, let's say, single disciplinary, and also the structure and the system is in such a way that it allows only for single discipline. You need a bachelor in economics to do a master in economics, and the same for other disciplines. It doesn't, let's say, the system is a bit less accommodative of interdisciplinarity if you want to move from one to the other, because you're so focused on one. And this is why, and this is where the importance of such master programs on social data and policy brings a new perspective and brings in a lot more to the existing system. So on the academic front, I think we need to bring more of interdisciplinary courses and research. So this is one way in which we can leverage this potential, which means that we need to be very accommodative of other disciplines, and also there should be a lot more of learning, and also at the faculty level, we also need to update ourselves, and often we don't, the universities also should give more time and space to for faculty to update. So this is something one can think of from the academy side, but also the international organizations. When we start talking about new data, when we start talking about availability of new data, a lot of new questions come in. What about the governance of these data? What about other issues involved? So this is where I think that the international organizations can come up, not only to bring in more awareness of this issue, because this is something I would say India is still quite behind when it comes to data privacy and issues of this kind. So when we start using the data, also awareness of how to use this well and ethically, this is something to be discussed, and that's where international institutions can play an important role. But at the same time, the push that's towards this kind of approach should come from both at the same time. There should be funding coming in from international organizations, more of these programs, and at the same time academic research that can feed into public policy decisions. So I see both should in a way go hand in hand. I also think that national governments have an important role to play, because they're changing the course content, and also thinking about platforms to connect the academy and the policy together. These are things that one start to think of. But I believe that the collaboration from the academy and the international organization is extremely crucial to exploit this huge potential that we have. Thank you.
Some great points, Nanditha. Thank you for that. I mean, what you cited in terms of your example from health and environment, it says like there are complex, multifaceted challenges at global and local levels. So how do we need to get away from compartmentalizations of disciplines and theories in order to address those local and global challenges? And a very interesting fact, and I think we have Chagun from policy and Raj from the data part of it would also agree to that there is so much to do in terms of collaborating or creating linkages between academia and the policy ecosystem, that there's need to have collaboration, not just at, say, global level, but at national, subnational levels to cater to that. And I think there's a lot could be co-developed and co-learned through this process. And maybe at our department, we are also trying through this course to create such kind of synergies. But this brings me to the core of discussion, that we are talking a lot about data or data privacy, data all around, and the man who we could say holds the data info over here is Raj. So I would like to ask Raj, particularly, who has an understanding of data science principles and methods, as to how he thinks that these principles and methods could be applied to public policy for enhancing decision making and efficiencies of the people or the stakeholders involved into it. Over to you, Raj.
Thank you, Nimita. It's great to be here, and nice to meet you, Dr. Nanditha and Dr. Chagun. Speaking of, I'm not the one holding the data is with you. I'm finding insights from the data, and that's what the academic program at Amrita is going to provide. So we have all the data. Data is the new oil, but oil, when you consume, it gets over, but data doesn't get over. So the way you play with it, you can actually make sense out of it. It's not going to get consumed. So today we are at a stage where we are not able to comprehend the data we have. We don't have infrastructure in terms of computing power to process so much data that is being captured. With the digital revolution during COVID, there has been so much opportunities, but there is lack of skills and people with that social policy mindset along with data science is lacking. But anyways, to answer your question, obviously these are obvious things. Data science has been trending in news media for at least for the past decade. You have seen its ability to be, Dr. Chagun talked about visualization, at least the basics of understanding and reporting, and we can move into predictive analytics. So first thing, it helps in making database decision making, not just simply relying on some specialized experts' guidance, which we don't have a feedback loop to compare against. Do we have, when we make a policy, what was the outcome of it? We make number of policies. We don't have an evidence-based policy. So that is, I think, is the number one database decision. Understanding the data takes a lot of quick wins. Then resource allocations. Obviously, in government, it works on contracts. There is a lot of, obviously with contracts, there is a lot of chance of fraudulent contracts, misuse of funds. We don't have a way to understand how much it really takes for the contracts to realize it, and how much they collect funds, and we don't really know. There are a lot of funds underutilized. So we really know how we can budget it, allocate the resources for it. Those are a few areas. And public services. So especially with Digital India Initiative, there is still a huge number of digital divide. Digital divide is not a thing with India. I'm working in the US. There is a project that I'm working with the city of Columbus, Ohio, where they are addressing digital divide in underprivileged communities. This digital divide, having access to these digital platforms and resources, plays a big role. So enabling that actually can help us better understand what kind of public services these people need, what's their feedback, what's their delivery analysis, things like that. And obviously, it's all about measuring whether it's impacting or not. At Intel, like still big corporate organizations still struggle a lot to come up with key performance indicators and policy measures. I think with data science, it can give a good picture on how we are performing on our policies. And obviously, like Dr. Chagun and Dr. Nanditha mentioned, a lot of things related to transparency, accountability can be prevented with right visualization, reporting, collecting the data. With collection of data, it also gives us the power to use it. I think at this point, it is the time is already late for us to use the data. We have collected plenty of data. There was a time, probably like a decade or two before, we did not have a lot of digital footprint. Today is the time. So India, I think, has got a lot of digital footprint. We don't have enough resources to work on that. So I think those are my few points. Although some of the initiatives I work in the industry point focuses on things outside of the government, but within the supply chain industry, there are still footprints related to procurement, contracts, responsible sourcing, environment, carbon emission, things like that. A lot of this, even those projects, it takes a lot of time for us to find the common ground with working with governments and other policy related organizations. So because of lack of skills in this domain, it makes it difficult for a public-private partnership as well. So because there are lack of expertise in the public enterprises or within the government system, it makes it difficult for any program. I think this program cannot run with just a public initiative. It has to work with a public-private partnership. So I believe the skills that need to fill the gap will join that dot. So I think those are my few insights on that.
Thank you so much, Raj. I think you covered a canvas in few minutes, saying that how important is data science methods and principles, right from predictive analytics to, talking about data visualization, which also Chagun shared about it, and how they could actually support at different levels, like, supporting resource allocation, delivery mechanism, to an extent to reduce digital divide, which I may say that it also exists in India to some extent. And we are also trying to cope with it. And maybe programs like social data science could really help us to navigate through. And a very interesting fact which you brought in, that there is a need for public-private partnership in that. And highlighting, if I may say that, highlighting the fact that what kind of creates a hindrance for achieving the potential of all these things is the lack of infrastructure, and most importantly, the skill, which we think of, which adds to all these three elements of society, policy, and data science together. So we are missing on to that. And I guess we would be able to work, and maybe Christopher could also agree on that we would be able to work out some sort of link across this. With this, we covered the first round of interactions with our panelists, and I invite Dr. Christopher to start with the second follow-up round. Over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Nimita. Yeah, I think we've started off on a great foot so far. The answers that our panelists have given have been excellent. They've given us insight, not only from university and academic side, not only from government side, but also from an industry perspective. And I believe all of our panelists have mentioned that it will take this interdisciplinary collective effort to really make an inroads and prove the value of social data science for public policy. And in fact, this is a great springboard onto the next round of questions. Actually, what Raj was starting to touch on in terms of the social inequality and how social data science can bring us forward, help our societies evolve, help our policies evolve to support social innovation, social development, especially sustainable development. And so my first question is along these lines for Dr. Chagun, if I may. What are some of the challenges that you perceive in ensuring that data-driven policies, in particular, are inclusive and address the needs of the diverse populations that we see in India? And just as a tag-on for this, how can our global policies also learn from the Indian perspective and the Indian experience when it comes to processing such diversity?
Thanks, Christopher. I think it was very interesting hearing from both Nanditha and Raj, and I would build on what they've just alluded to. This question, what you asked, is very, very critical, and it's something that not just India grapples with, but almost everywhere. But with the Indian context, it's even more intense because given the population, given the demographic divide and heterogeneity, diversity that we pose as a country. And that also comes with both the challenge and an opportunity, which is the large population, given the heterogeneity of this population, the kind of data it generates itself is an opportunity at a given point, at the same time, challenge to navigate the intricacies of data, how you want to understand it, right? So that's a foundational statement to begin what I wanted to say when it comes to public governance and policy and usage of data. So the primary challenge that I would categorize, or primary set of challenges, is of course common for any databases or data-based decision-making systems, which is availability of the data is the core. Like everybody says, okay, where is it available? Like first of all, the availability is the challenge. And particularly in India, where you're just building data systems, statistical units through surveys and statistics of official and non-official sources, then the availability itself and ensuring the availability becomes a major, major challenge for many departments, agencies, and programs. Now, based on that, if you go, even if it is available, accessibility of the data point, what is that we are looking for, is another level of challenge. So data is available, but the accessibility of it is even more challenging. So how do we think about the layers of complexity there? That adds another challenge. Then let's say you get hold of the data, which is available and accessible, but still you don't know whether you can rely on the data, the dependability on the data, right? Like the validation processes in terms of how you collect, how you process, how you then draw aggregations and macro level indicators out of it, or composite indices out of it. All of that poses questions of dependability and reliability. So all of that just from like at least the limited experience and knowledge that I have within the governance ecosystem of India that I'm talking about. And when you go into the micro governance or meso level governance units like cities and collectorates and districts and other places, I think that actually complicates a lot of these things, what you're talking about. And this, again, as I said, could be applicable to any country in any data set, right? But okay, what are we doing to address it in terms of its practices? One advantage we have as a country is the digital architecture that we are trying to leverage on. And the digital architecture using the IT facilities that the country has built in the last 20, 30 years is really helping in addressing some of these challenges. I wouldn't say all the challenges. But then if I just conclude with this, I would sound like 100% engineer. But the reality is not that. The reality is the social angle of it, the biasness that it comes with, and the intricate, selections that we take in what we use and what we don't use, and who uses it, who processes it, who conveys it. All of those are other side of behavioral challenges that we see. Those are not technical challenges. Those are actually challenges related to the society, the societal actors, the stakeholders involved in processing the data. So from both sides, there are challenges. The solutions are again twofold because there are both sides, at least. There are many sides, at least I can think of two sides. Technical challenges could be addressed through technical competencies, but behavioral challenges are not, right? The societal challenges are not. So how are we addressing those are the real questions. I think courses like this, which you are planning to lead on to develop thinkers and engineers and professionals in policy space with the expertise that you're going to give them for 2 years, should also include behavioral insights, human psychology, thinking process, and biases, how to navigate them naturally, all of those. That's my thought about it.
That's a wonderful insight. Thank you, Dr. Chagun. And before I reflect a little further on what you've said, I'd like to remind everybody in the audience that we are taking question and answer in the chat box. So if you have any questions based on our panelists' discussion points, please write them there. We'll be spending as much time as we can after the questions on what you have to say. So please do post your questions in the chat box. Now, if I could reflect on what you said, Chagun, the challenges and opportunities, right? They come hand in hand when we're talking about this super complex, interrelated, intersecting challenges that come with dealing with humans. We're a basket of problems ourselves, and when we're a collective and a nation, it's just amplified. And as many of my betters have said in other forums, technology is but a tool. It's but an amplifier of what is already there in society. And I think the same would definitely hold true with social data science as well, when we're talking about how we use this to serve society in the best way. You brought up data availability, accessibility, and reliability as some potential challenges that are not unique to India, but that India has unique, I would say, both challenges and opportunities, right, in dealing with them going forward. I love how you're able to connect that we do need more skilled labor. We need skilled labor that is strategically based in these values and ethics that we hold close to our hearts, but also with some discrimination and discernment, that we can't just accept point blank that anything our politicians are saying is for our best interest. We need to hold ourselves and our leaders accountable. And I think this program, if I could say so, would prepare the next generation of citizens to become these kind of gatekeepers and make sure that whatever data is being collected in the right way, and that it's informing policies in the best possible way for the most amount of people. And for me, I guess it's clear that makes me very excited. But my next question would be for Dr. Nanditha, is what is making you excited in this field, specifically on social data science and public policy, et cetera? From your perspective, what future applications can we expect to see in this domain?
Yeah, thank you, Christopher, for the nice discussion. I couldn't say that I could agree more with Chagun on the points that he raised, especially when we talk about technology. Always there are opportunities and challenges. So technology per se is not good or bad. It's how it's up to us humans to make the best use of the technology. So I like to see. I hope that the opportunities will somehow, be more than the challenges that we have in front of us. If we start thinking about the current, let's say, the exciting parts in the social data science, if I can think of as an economist, is we have much more of, let's say, predictive analytics that was not there before. So in my discipline, we were pretty much always trying to think on the reasons behind why certain things work. So try to understand the causality, if I can put it that way. And that has been the field for quite a long time, So now with this new methods, we have there's much more predictive power, and this is also very, very useful for policy. We were taught when we were doing our standard courses that we always need to understand why things work and how things work, and at times it's very difficult. And there is also not the part of falsifiability. You see, so when you go to policymaker, you say, well, I think this is why it rained. And they will say, okay, someone else saying this is not why it rained, that's the other reason. But if I'm able to say, look, if it will rain or not in the next 5 days, it's also very nice information for them. We used to leave all these predictive things to finance people and stay away from the predictive analysis. But now we can do much more of predictions. We can say, given the capabilities of a region, which are the new sectors that you could go, or which are the new skills that you need in the next 5 years. So they find it interesting. So in a way, what is exciting for me already, that, in some areas they're already taking this approach, especially with the public governments, is that we can do much more engagement. We can do much more engagement with the government, and that's also because there's much more predictive analysis, which they also tend to understand a bit better. And as also Raj pointed out, also Chagun pointed out, the data visualization is an important tool that helps us communicate. That's the other part. It's very easy to communicate what we do to someone who has not done a similar, academic background. So this is something that's extremely exciting as well. Then, of course, now we can also do much more real-time data analysis. So it's not, the real-time data collection and analysis have become huge, especially with like, social networks, social media analysis, and this also helps in swift response. I mean, we can try to understand when there's a COVID, the spread and things like that by putting in some kind of numbers and trying to how things would change, how some specific policies could adjust these. So this kind of real time data analysis is also something that that excites me. Over, I think of something that I would, let's say, in the future applications, I believe that we will have enhanced social science research, and because we can have access to hopefully richer data sets, we can, let's say, move it to topics that are more nuanced, human behavior that usually it's difficult to capture with existing databases. We can understand some hidden patterns and correlations that were previously not accessible. At the same time, something that I'm not sure if this would be the future, but something that I hope is also to have more replicability of research. This is something that's currently heavily lacking. I mean, you take any kind of academic research you want to replicate, it's difficult. It's just not, so this is something that we really want also students and also faculty to try to improve in the academic field. And this is something I hope that it will improve with open data and transparency. So hopefully the research findings will be robust, replicable, trustworthy. So the main thing that I hope to see in the future is improved public policy decision making, empirically supported public policy. And this, at least in my field, was difficult a bit before, because with causal analysis, at times it's difficult to convince policymakers. While when we say, well, in 5 days it will rain or not, and you can check if that was right, it becomes much more. So the predictive analysis have helped a lot in this respect. So the future I see are those much more improved public policy decision making, where academics can really feed into. And within the academic community, a bit more of replicability of our research findings and more open data and transparency. So these are all exciting things to look forward to. Thanks.
No, I agree. I'm also really excited by them because it's the cutting edge. It's the future. And speaking as a student of social sciences, predictability and that specter of causality has always been a holy grail for us and has always been out of reach. I remember, day one, class one of undergraduate social science, that there is no such thing as causality in our field. But you're right, there's hope that we might be moving closer and closer towards that with these more upgraded tools. And if we can use these for improving policy decision-making in the right way, with the right ideas for serving our society, for making good improvements, right? Like you were mentioning, based on the nuances and the contextuality of the populations that we're working for, then there's nothing like it. This is, for me, I guess, one of the ultimate aims of this profession. So it's really wonderful that you also agree, and you represent, United Nations, UN University, that we assume would hold these same values. And for me, this is an inspiration, and I hope for those listening, it's also an inspiration that this field represents the cutting edge. It's what's next, and it's what's required for the world to move forward. Yeah. And I think this is a wonderful segue, if I may, into asking a question of Raj. I know because of our personal interactions and also from your bio that, data sciences for social good is very close to your heart. It's something that you have always been working towards, and you try to incorporate that into your work, even in, the corporate sector. So I'd like to hear more from your perspective. What does that mean for you? And how do these streams kind of converge together, the social data science policy and combining data science for social good in particular? So if you could just speak a little bit about that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, before I start, I just want to piggyback Dr. Nanditha and Dr. Chagun. They mentioned a very good point on accessibility and having the knowledge of social society, human psychology, and how good the data is. And those are similar problems that we face in industry too. Um, Imagine a industry of size like 50,000 employees. It's difficult to find where the data is compared to where the government, with all the red tape involved. So there is no innovation without people. There is no innovation without society. So these skills play an important role. Apart from the techniques, you can name the techniques where you use large language models, machine learning, you call predictive analytics, you want generative AI. You There is no limit. Technologies keeps on evolving, but the core skills that they called out plays a big role. I think this course, um, we are teaching that combined is what makes students successful. But yeah, so going back to the question, yeah, definitely this social data science resonates with me personally as well. So I've been following this for past decade and how it has evolved over time. There is huge opportunities. I think the same problems an industry faces with respect to change management is going to be in multifold when it comes to government. Even with industries, it's really hard to make a change if there is a process. So imagine a government process. If you want to make such changes, it takes a village to make that change. So, anyways, personally, I think there is huge potential for the people with that mindset, with is right skills related to society, social problems, psychology. Project management also plays some knowledge of finance. Project management also plays a big role in understanding how practical that policy is, not just simply analyzing the data. So I can speak about the work I do with the state of Ohio. I spoke about digital divide. There is a project on how how can we use reverse supply chain to distribute devices from private sector, which they are retiring to people who are in need. So that is a project which pulls the entire state. What are the devices that are retiring? How can we find the beneficiaries for that? So that's a supply chain project. It all reimbursed devices. It could be a mobile phone to a PC to a TV. So anything that has been retired, how can we make it usable for it? So this is one of the projects I worked on. Another project I already mentioned on supply chain, sustainable supply chain, which relates to procuring raw materials, ethical sourcing, considering the labor laws, considering the fair trade agreements between nations, things like that. That's more on the material procurement side. I'm also on the Sustainable Supply Chain Committee for Association of Supply Chain Management, and where we do produce yearly reports on how sustainable the supply chain is, because carbon footprints related to that, we do produce uh, detailed reports on each of the segments within the supply chain, how much footprint the carbon emission is coming. Um, so on the industry front, there is huge opportunities, and the reward is on the private sector is there. But on the government side, I still believe without like if you don't understand society, if you don't understand human psychologies, the nuances associated with it, you cannot be successful even in industry. So I think the skills that you learn on this program is a must skill. It's You can learn about programming or any of the techniques just by going on this on online. You can just take a course and then learn. But the skills which are hard to learn are how to do a social science research, how the practical experience of doing one. Chris, you mentioned your background coming from social science, you know the value of it. India having the highest number of technology graduates, engineering graduates, we lack in innovation. We lack in finding solutions to problems. The exact skill that's missing is the social science skills, the nuances of psychology, which Dr. Nanditha and Dr. Chagun already mentioned. If we can fill this gap, that exactly is the gap that's why we are not able to innovate more. That gap is missing for really smart technology individuals. If you look at any of those great startups, it's not about the technology, it's finding the right match on societal problems. Whether you're trying to build a for-profit organization, you're trying to find a problem in the society. That exact skill it cannot be learned just by sitting at home. So I think this goes along with practical projects and applications, plays a big role to learning that skill, which is priceless. It's not about you becoming a social data scientist or working on industry. It's a skill that you become more innovative. I think an innovative problem solver, that should be what the core of what this offers. Yeah, so yeah, I think those are the things I want to resonate. Everyone looks like these are common sense and fundamentals we learned through in our school days, but a lot of social science we did learn, but we forget. But when we learn when we do actual social science research, it really makes a big difference in understanding the society from a different perspective. So then you go back and use the data, it's not about using the advanced generative AI. It's not about using the large language models or machine learning. It's really about finding the right problem for the right technique. Even if you end up using a simple Excel sheet and you produce a simple report and it ended up showing value, that's what it matters. That's what project management skills matter. That's where the social science skills matters. So yeah, those are my few points.
I couldn't agree more, honestly. I was thinking as you were talking that I learned this somewhere and I can't put my finger on it, but there's a saying that goes, you can have the tools and you can have the power to implement these tools, but if you don't know how, or you have, something broken upstairs, then it doesn't matter. It's actually quite a dangerous thing to have tools and power, but without the know-how, but without the wisdom to guide you. And I think, I won't claim that social science has wisdom, but at least we engage with these questions. We engage with these really deep, twisted, we call them wicked problems, right? That don't have an easy answer, but that we're trying to figure out. We are, at least, in the most innocent, naive perspective, we're trying to figure out the best solution for the maximum number of people. I keep saying that again and again. And I think until recently, a lot of policymakers have been hamstrung or they've been weakened because they don't have the data. Or even if they have the data, they don't know what to do with it. They don't have the tools to analyze it. Now we have these two things. The next step is to, inject that social science wisdom, if I can, into, marrying these three things together. And having a large cohort, like a democratic cohort of professionals with the right skills in all of these domains will help to ensure that we can make the most of it. So I really appreciate your perspective here, Raj, and I think I'm hearing harmony, between all of our panelists, both with Nanditha and Chagun and you, Raj, saying the same thing in different ways. And it's just echoing in my brain. We're on the right track here. We're all touching. Our finger is on the pulse, and it's quite exciting. So this is the end of our panel discussion. We've gone a little bit over 50 minutes, so we have about 10 minutes or so for audience Q&A. And then for those of you who are interested, I'll be giving a brief 5 to 10 minute presentation on our master's program in social data science and policy following the Q&A. So I encourage, if anybody is interested to apply or would just like to learn more, please stay online after the audience Q&A, and I'll be going over a brief presentation with that. But for now, I'll turn it over to Nimita for the audience question and answer. So over to you, please.
Thank you, Christopher. And I must say, I have learned so much. And as you said, there's so much of harmony within this conversation, and I'm loving it completely. So here comes the Q&A session. And the first question that has come from Mohit Garg, who is from IIT Delhi. And he says, what I believe is one of the key challenge we have over the analyzing many curriculum on data science is it goes with analytics and visualization, but the problem lies in data divide. Data is unfair. We need to make it fair. We need to focus on DMP. And it is kind of targeted to Chagun, but it is also open to other panelists, saying that if you could share your views on it. Chagun, over to you.
What does DMP stand for? Data management practices. I see. Okay. No, I agree. There is nothing to disagree on that comment. But I think the views, if somebody asks, I would say data itself means nothing. I mean, I think somebody said, I don't remember who, we are in the era of data dumping now. I mean, there is so much data feeding into our brains and our eyes, and we just try to make sense out of it. But there is also something that, from a very philosophical point of view, I heard recently that we don't need to process all this data. We don't need it. I mean, whatever we needed it, we were okay with that, right? So there is a distinction to that. Like how much is that? How much of a data that one could actually process and make use out of it? That comes not from any technical filtering. That comes from where do we draw the line from our common sense and understanding. And if we lose that, I think that also connects to another question. Maybe I'm just jumping onto that, which is the use of artificial intelligence tools and LLMs in processing the data. So if it is all completely about technicals and technicalities of how do we process the data, what do we draw insight, if tools can draw insights better than humans and faster than humans, is it what we really wanted? I think that's a question that we seriously need to ask in classrooms like yours, where you ask people to think deeper before they equip themselves with techniques and methodologies, right? There is certainly human value. Without human value and human principles, we will not be successful in using any tools, techniques, frameworks that are there for data science and data engineering.
I think, Mohit, I hope you got an answer. And I mean, I believe a topic like this requires an entire day of conversation, but Chagun has somehow managed to articulate it. And I completely agree that data itself has so much of vice in it, and we have to be very careful with how we manage data over the time and how to make it fair in a lot of ways and make it, and even not just the data per se, but the outcomes derived by data has to also be very cautiously inspected at different levels. So we have to be careful with that. Thank you, Chagun. Our next question is from Jay Surya. The question is, it would be great if you let us know the skill set required for a data scientist for related to social policy analysis. And it has not been kind of targeted to any speaker, but I hope any one of you could respond to this. Nanditha, Raj, Chagun, please, open to the floor.
I'm not the expert, but I can take a first pass at it. But Dr. Chagun and Nanditha, please feel free to chime in. Obviously, I think, like Chris mentioned, it can be divided into different buckets. Obviously, the core data science involves you to know some programming, some computer science, maths, and stats. Within computer science, you want to know about machine learning, all those advanced techniques. That's on the computer science side. And if you look at the social science, which we already talked a lot, like you want to be knowing about designing experiments and modeling in the field, analysis, finding out causation, plausibility analysis, causal interference on the social science project perspective. And I also mentioned about project management, project scoping, finance, some knowledge about budgeting, really helps. Knowledge about what's happening in current affairs, transparency, fairness, ethics related things, societal issues. That will be like the third bucket. And the fourth bucket would be like good communication. So not just speaking with data, you want to be able to uh, uh, tell your story. End of the day, you're trying to make a sales pitch to convince someone. So communication plays a big role regardless of where you are at. And so I think the four buckets: computer science, social science skills, project management, scoping, and social issues, current affairs, and then the last one would be like communications. Yeah, those are the areas I would.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Raj. I think it does answer a lot. But Chagun and Nanditha, would you like to add a few points?
I think Raj already mentioned many of the things that I had in mind, especially the latest things are within the computer science on machine learning, large language models. If I can go to a slightly broader set of skills, depending on the place you're working, I mean, on the region you're working, you might also want to understand a bit about the legalities of the data, of the use of data, of privacy, and things like that. But yes, I think Raj pretty much covered everything. Yeah, thanks.
Great. We'll hop to the next question, which is okay. There are multiple windows opening in my thing. I'm sorry for that, but yes. So the next question is by Victoria, who happens to be one of our faculty member too. Victoria says, thank you for sharing so many interesting ideas. I would appreciate if you express your views on the following. Today, many scholars start considering AI a partner in research, not just a tool. What are the opportunities and challenges of using predictive and generative AI to handle growing volumes of data to formulate preliminary insights for policy? So it's not addressed to any one of you. Chagun, would you like to take a dig into this?
Certainly a dig in for sure, because I appreciate the question. And again, what I'm going to share is my personal opinion about this, which is, I mean, considering AI as a partner in research or as a co-author in a publication, which is a research output, is absurd, according to me. It certainly is a tool, and that's the way how we want to see it, because there is certain attributes which makes human thinking process as unique as what it is in terms of knowledge progression, creation, and dissemination. And AI today, something else maybe tomorrow, or something more advanced maybe in another 100 years can come. And all of that will still be just tools, not partners in research. Because we, from evidence, know that the AI tools and LLMs, chatbots, when they generate answers and responses and insights, it's not 100% factual. It's not yet fully original in terms of its content that is attributed to the way it is attributed in these conversations that we take up. So if we go deeper into those evidences, it certainly is harmful when somebody doesn't know these facts and engage with those tools in terms of generating research outputs. I think Nanditha also said how technology is just a tool to amplify what it exists, and we should limit our engagement and understanding also to that. That's my limited response to that question.
Thank you, Chagun. And I think we all somehow agree to that idea and would have given some clarity to our audience as well on this. The next question is by Kiba, who asks, most policymakers are politicians and are very much interested in maintaining their political popularity. How can we convince them with the data-based policies that we propose against what is popular? So it is not targeted to anyone, but very, very interesting yet very controversial kind of a question.
I nominate Nanditha to you will target me.
So yeah, I like being nominated. I would kind of ask back why you think it is not popular, in the sense of we don't want to underestimate our citizens, in the sense that I think that also people are getting more and more aware of the opportunities of new data and use of these, how we can use this new data and methods for policy decision making. Now, if it is popular, then I think politicians also need votes, so there is no much problem with that. I don't think there is so much of let's say trade-offs or let's say divergence in opinion on this. Of course, when you think of political mileage, they also want to show that they are engaging in evidence-based policy making. So I do not see much of a great challenge there. Of course, it takes time, because that is some of these policy making. It could be something where the outputs are not short term, but they are medium run or long run, especially economic policies, if we can think of. So there's always this challenge, but this, I wouldn't say this is specific to the new data revolution per se. Yeah, so this would be my quick answer. Thanks.
I think all of us are like treading through the line, and I think Nanditha has very well captured the essence of it. And I'm sure Keba would have got an idea about it, and so the larger audience. The last question, and maybe we'll, I believe we are already beyond our time limits, but the last question is directed towards Raj. The question is by Sarah, and she says that interesting discussion. Raj is speaking about the lack of social science research skills among analysts for deriving meaningful insights. How do we prime existing social science researchers or prep them in using the data? So that is the question. And I think it is not just Raj, but all of you could highlight that. And it would be great if you could share that in terms of career opportunities. As a closing to the Q&A, where do you see social data science and policy while you respond to this? Yeah. Raj, would you like to?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I think this is kind of connecting to the answer I provided on this different skill sets that makes us successful in making a better social data scientist, if you want to call that as a term. So I think if existing social science researchers want to venture into this area of social data science, I think the skill and training they require to take involves some understanding of tools within the computer science, either a visualization tool, reporting tool, a programming language, things related. So that will be the first step. Then, like Dr. Chagun mentioned, access to data and tools. So they need to understand what's available, what are the systems that has been used, and what softwares or tools are there, so that they can access the data. So accessibility is one of the hardest challenges even within industry, and again, data literacy. And so with the nature of the demographics in India, the data is not simple academic project we do. It's not like hundreds of rows and 20 to 50 columns. It can be like you can easily have 500, 600 row columns and millions of records. So understanding that, creating a sense out of the data itself takes a lot of time. So more collaboration, institutional grants, so they can apply for, if they have the right skills, they can apply for grants and institutional policies. And just to piggyback on Nanditha's job opportunities, right? So I think with this program that Amrita offers, someone who already has, like Chris called out, the social science wisdom, they can make themselves better by finding the right contacts and the skills they are lacking with respect to data literacy. The job opportunities could be in public sector, think tanks, even within corporates, in Intel or large corporations. There are policies teams which are internal. There are job opportunities within there that they are looking for those such skills where they don't have to rely on an MBA graduate who is a general skilled but not specially skilled in policy related data. So yeah, those are my few insights I'd like to pass on.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you so much for that. And I turn the table towards Chagun and Chagun to respond to that, that what sort of career opportunities do you see in this emerging or evolving field, I would say. Over to you, Chagun.
Thanks, Nimita. Thanks, Raj and Nanditha. I think it's been a pleasure sharing this discussion with you as well, with also Christopher. In terms of career opportunities, I will limit myself to the sectors that I'm engaged in, policy research and policy activities within the government agencies that we are working. And my domain is primarily science advice and science and technology broadly. And we see at least the opportunities as just multiplying. And I would put it other way around. There could be more people waiting for opportunities, but how would it make a difference is when at the receiving end of applications, when we find, let's say, 5 candidates, of which 2 with analytical and data science or data-based approach to whatever we are working on, the preference is higher in terms of getting shortlisted. I think that answers the question indirectly. Which is to say, there are certainly benefits in terms of making a potential employer look towards your profile in the government or in policy space that where we come from, by telling, okay, here is what I bring to the table, which otherwise would take, let's say, more efforts to distill the information in terms of what you need to know. I think when we try to gain those skills, the opportunities just get multiplied naturally. And that is also to say, in government now there are multiple fellowships, lateral entry options, and also in government outsourced activities in academic institutions of policy research. As Nimita and I both know, we both are products of that system. That academic institutions try to host think tanks and policy research units for government agencies. They always look for people who can have the best of both worlds, like understand the needs of the government agencies and agencies of those offices, and try to also build academic rigor and skill sets and frameworks and deliver for it. And that also opens up a large set of opportunities at the intersection of academic policy research and government policy activities. So those are 2 sectors to look for anybody getting into this program and looking for how to cone their talents to get into these areas.
Thank you, Chagun. I think from Raj's point of view and from yours, it just adds different perspectives on different sectors where there is so much of potential. And I think Nanditha would just add another layer to it. Over to you, Nanditha.
Yeah, thanks, Amrita. So if we can start thinking of, like, how social science researchers can use better data. I mean, there are 2 let's say 2 ways to think of it. First, let's think of the next generation, how we can't be in the same situation also in 20 years from now. Many of the the areas that we chose is because we know what it is about. So people know these keywords, but they don't know what it means. So at the early education level, at least to have some kind of even at higher education, could be at the school level, if we know what it means to work with data, I think this could be useful. But this is more of a longer term perspective. But if you want to look at a shorter term, depending on, as part of my research, I also look at which are the new technologies that firm adopt and which are the new skills that are in demand. So one thing that I can see, using even like Naukri, job portal and everything, you see that there something that is cross-cutting a lot of different narrowly defined occupations is data. Data analytics. So these, so job opportunities. Yes, I believe that if the connecting link, as I said before, is on methods and data science, even if you choose one social science, you could move to different topics if you have those skills. So this is how I see it, and I think that this will kind of cross-cuts different occupations and career opportunities. Again, will only go up with these methods. And so at the medium term, what one could do, I think some kind of government support. In fact, actually in Kerala, they're already doing something of this sort, where there is government support for people already employed to upskill or to reskill themselves. So this is something that can be done. Of course, we also need good institutes to train. So this could be really supportive once you have not done this, let's say, this fantastic master program that you have given at a later stage. This is something one could rely on to, let's say, upskill the population. But I think the initiative of this master program and similar programs that are interdisciplinary, that cross-cut data and social sciences, would be a great step in this on this. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Nanditha. I think it circles out the entire conversation around that it is not just about creating a new cadre of people who have the skills to understand the society, data aligned with it, and the policy outcomes or the policy process around it, but it's also to upskill, as you say, the existing capacities and in some way, or the people involved in these kinds of overlapping interdisciplinary terrains and want to understand the complex nature of challenges that is emerging. And I think all three of you are highlighting to that. And it is great that I bring the word harmony again, which Christopher has placed, that there is so much of harmony in our conversation, that highlighting that we all are on a single page right now, and agreeing to this fact that social data science and policy has a very big potential future to and to just look at global problems, social problems, and derive a lot of solutions out of it. Thank you so much for that. With this, we come to the end of the panel discussion. And with this, before we move to the next segment, where Christopher would be talking a little about our program, I take this opportunity to thank everyone for joining our webinar, the second in the series, and we would be hosting a number of other webinars over time, and we would definitely look forward to have all of you on those webinars. I would like to thank our esteemed panelists, Dr. Nanditha, Mr. Raj, and Dr. Chagun, for joining us from their busy schedule and providing such wonderful insights and perspectives. Thanks a lot. I also extend my thanks to our Dean, Professor Bhavani Rao, who has been very supportive towards our program. I also thank Christopher for being always in tow and being completely overboarded and having so much trust on us to take forward and work as a team. Thank you, Christopher, and my colleague Varun, who is also on the call, for working as a team to build up this webinar together. A large shout to all the technical support we have gathered from our IT team, and all the people who have worked behind this webinar. Thanks for that. And most importantly, I would like to thank our audience for being attentive and listening to all of us very patiently and engaging through their questions. Thanks a lot for joining us, and we hope to see you in future. With this, I would welcome back Christopher to talk a little about our master's program, that is MSc program on social data science and policy. Over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Nimita, and thank you again to everybody. I'll echo all of the thanks and the gratitude that has been poured out till now. I just wanted to take a few minutes of your time, only if you're interested, to talk a little bit about our 2-year master's program. So if you are interested, please do stay on the call. Otherwise, I wish you a good evening or good day wherever you are. 1 second as I share my screen, I have just a short PowerPoint presentation. And I do encourage you, if you are interested or you know somebody who might be interested in this program, please check out the chat window where my colleague Varun has posted the link to our program website. The website includes the application and admissions links that you can avail as you like. All right, so I'm just trying to share my screen. Great, I believe it's visible to everybody now. So, like Dr. Namita mentioned, this program is the MSc Masters of Science in Social Data Science and Policy. In this presentation, I'll just share a couple of slides that give an overview of our overall curriculum, the idea behind it, the dream behind it, and our goals and outcomes that we hope that students will achieve as they graduate from this program. This program comes under the Amrita School of Social and Behavioral Sciences. And again, we're based out of the Faridabad campus at the Amrita Hospital, which is in Sector 88. We are in collaboration with the Amrita Center for Women's Empowerment and Gender Equality. And our director, Professor Bhavani, holds India's only UNESCO chair in gender equality and women's empowerment. We're also associated with the Ammachi Labs, which is a research center looking at computer-human interactions. And this gives you a really nice introduction to where we're coming from in terms of how this program was started and why it was started. Our director, our dean, and all of our different centers and collaborators, we all believe very strongly it's only through the combination of the most fundamental social theories, social research methods, and the combination with emerging technologies that we can have the most positive impact on our society and help us to overcome the unique challenges that our modern life is currently facing, including things like climate change, shifting globalization, power dynamics, and wealth distribution, etc. So this social data science and policy program directly comes from this mission to serve society in the best way possible, while focusing on the most marginalized, the most vulnerable of our brothers and sisters in society. This program is based on 3 fundamental pillars. Social sciences, of course, where we're looking at fundamental principles of social sciences like sociology, anthropology, philosophy, economics, and behavior, psychology, etc. Then looking at data science, and especially emerging technologies in AI, machine learning, natural language processing, etc. Looking at how we can process large, complex data sets in our populations. Ultimately, these would combine to provide an evidence-based policy suggestions, policy recommendations. And for that, we need a strong civil science background, understanding especially the global South focused policies that are the most useful, the most relevant, the most urgent for today's society. This is a 2-year program that prepares graduates to, again, apply complex data and information technologies to inform not only policy, but also community decision-making related to global issues, especially sustainable development in the global South. However, as we heard from our speakers today, especially Raj from our industry sector, that this skill set is not only useful for civil service or in academia. This is also very relevant for industries, not only in their internal dynamics, but because we very well understand that industry and other sectors play a large role in shaping our societies. The decision-making, the influence in our social systems is not limited just to our policymakers and decision makers, but every one of us has some impact on society. And as our end-level capitalism is growing and growing, we understand that industry plays a large role as well. And so this program will also prepare graduates to enter into industry and have a positive impact there. There is inherently a diversity of skills that graduates would gain here in all three of these fundamental areas. And I'll talk a little bit about that later when we look into the curriculum. Now, our vision and objectives we've talked about, and this webinar is a perfect exploration into the deeper vision and the larger objectives of this program. But again, we're looking at students who have a background primarily in social sciences, public policy, and data sciences, but not limited to this. Really, this program is for any student, any lifelong student who is interested in making a positive impact and is excited by and intrigued by this intersection of these three different fundamental fields. Our objectives are to provide graduates with skills in rigorous scientific research methods and communication, mixed methods, including quantitative and qualitative, and utilizing different technical skills in emerging technologies that accompany and can support this kind of rigorous scientific research. We also hope to provide a deep understanding of sustainable development, especially global South issues, that can be applied throughout not only Indian context, but international as well. And finally, the formation of strong personal skills and values for lifelong learning, which is a hallmark of the Amrita University experience. Currently, our course offers 4 specializations in addition to the core curriculum. These include economic policy, especially behavioral economics, health policy, gender policy, and education policy. And these are purposefully vague specializations because we hope students will find their own specific inspiration based on their experiences, not only in the coursework, but also in the field work that is a primary component of this program. It's not written here, but we'll talk about it when we go through the curriculum, that field work and field research is an essential part of this program. All graduates from Amrita are encouraged to take part in field work, where we go in primarily rural settings, Indian villages, to not only collect data and learn about the life and the specific issues that people in rural areas of India face, but also to develop a sense of community and unity with those who are different from us, who have a different lifestyle, different background, caste, class, other demographic factors, and gain a deep, real-world, grounded understanding of the life of the majority of our citizens, I could say, in the Indian context. And this really gives the Amrita advantage, I would say, is this exposure to real-world problems and the exposure to field work. In addition to our program, MSc Social Data Science and Policy, the SSBS, our School of Social Behavioral Sciences, also champions social work, both in master's and bachelor's programs. And our social work faculty also take part in teaching our courses here and guiding our field work. So our graduates can be assured that we have, the best possible field guides along with their research. Now, the last question in our Q&A talked about job prospects. So I won't go into too much detail here, but in general, we have feedback from professionals across multiple sectors that these skill sets that you gain in this program could be applied and could give a cutting advantage to graduates in multiple job sectors, including data privacy analysts, data security and governance specialists across sectors, including NGO, government, and industry, social analytics scientists, again, across sectors, specialists of data visualization and journalism or communication, policy advice, and more. So we hope that students are confident that with this degree, you'll have a special edge in applying for jobs across multiple sectors that other colleagues and programs won't provide. This program is unique amongst programs across India, and I would say even the world, as there are very few, if any, universities that provide a program specifically engaging social data science and policy, all these three together, given equal weight and importance. There are many programs that offer just social science, just data science, or just policy, with some kind of integration in between. But this is one of the first, if not the first in India and around the world, that combines all of them strategically together into a single package. We're also very proud to promote a Global South focus to ensure that there's an inclusion and a representation in global literature and research that prioritizes where most of the population lives on this planet, not just, the so-called weird countries in the global north. I mentioned dedicated fieldwork as a unique contribution, and I would highlight it again because the primary research of our students will come from their fieldwork rather than simply secondary data. We also are proud to boast that we have memorandums of understanding and other contracts with high-profile expert organizations, including the Center for Research in Schemes and Policy, CRISP, which is a leading organization in India, which provides data and policy advice for decision makers across sectors. We also have within Amrita, a Department of Science and Technology Satellite Policy Research Center, and we're actively engaged with Government of India, not just in DST, but also MHRD, MESD, and other ministries where we have opportunities for students to engage in applied research and potentially in internships and placements following this. I also mentioned that our director holds a UNESCO chair in gender equality, women's empowerment, and we have multiple ongoing work with the United Nations network, including UNESCO in New Delhi, UNICEF, UN Women, etc. We are located in Faridabad, and I mentioned that we're in the Amrita Hospital. So for especially those who choose to follow the health specialization, we have access to the state-of-the-art medicine, state-of-the-art research in health, not only in data science and social data science, but also in biotechnology, in drug discovery, and other innovative cutting-edge research in the medical sector as well. And our students would have front row access to this kind of exciting research opportunities. Last couple of slides here before I let you go. This is a basic overview of our semester-wise course offerings, and more detail is provided on our website, which you can see in the chat box. But you can see here the three fundamental pillars of data science, public policy, and social science are represented in each of the semesters. And I'll also call your attention to, in semester one, the dedicated immersive data collection. That's our field work. And then as we go forward into the other semesters, there's dedicated credits provided for internships and placement opportunities following your second year. We also support our students in data visualization and publication, looking towards academic publications in peer-reviewed journals and conferences to further bolster our graduates' experience and their CVs post-graduation. These are a few of our program outcomes. I don't want to take too much of your time. This is given in more detail on our website. But in general, what we hope to achieve through the two-year program is to provide students with scientific knowledge and training, especially in data science and policy for society, sustainability and society. And this is always based in ethics and values. We're looking at discrimination and discernment and not just having the tools, not just having the influence and power to make decisions, but also to make the right decisions, using evidence-based approaches grounded in context and in society. And finally, to have a strong fundamental and foundation in numerical and data analysis using the latest emerging technologies so that you can be up to date and you can adapt with the future of data science as well, and not just be stuck in traditional methods. So that's all for the presentation of our program. You can, of course, reach us by email. I believe all of you have received multiple emails from me and from my colleagues, so you're welcome to email us with any questions. Admissions is open through, I believe, July 15th now. So if you're interested to apply, please do check out our website and submit the proper documentation, and we will immediately set up an interview with you. And we look forward to hearing from each and every one of you. So thank you again for your attention, and I wish you all the best in your endeavors now and in the future. Thank you. All right, I think that concludes, and I'll give the final sign-off. Thank you again for attending. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to hearing from you. Take care, everyone. Namaskar.